afternoon. I'm Annie Smith, Chief of Investigations for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I'm going to give you a recap of the incidents that occurred last night at 8241 Herlong Road. At approximately 11:32 a.m., patrol responded to that residence in reference to an aggravated assault between the suspect and his mother. Apparently the mother was inside the residence. They got into an altercation, and as she fled the residence, he fired a shot from a shotgun at her as she was fleeing. Fortunately, she was not hit. At 12:53, reports of shots fired came from inside the house, and the suspect continued to call 911, threatening to harm himself and anyone who came to the door, including police officers. Patrol requested SWAT, and the hostage negotiators respond since he continued to make suicidal and homicidal threats. By 2:22, the SWAT team and hostage negotiators had set up personnel. They were on scene, and they began negotiations with him. They did this via telephone and using a bullhorn. For several hours, they continued to try to negotiate a safe surrender with the suspect. At 4:12 p.m., police heard a gunshot from inside the residence. The suspect broke out a window with his shotgun, pointed the barrel in the direction of officers, and fired one shot at the ballistic response vehicle that contained several SWAT officers. Officers returned fire at the suspect, and he retreated inside of his residence. Negotiators continued to try to negotiate with him to get him to surrender peacefully, and at 4:52 p.m., the suspect came out the front door again with the shotgun, pointed it at the officers inside the ballistic vehicle, and the one officer fired back at the suspect. The suspect again retreated inside of his house, and they continued to try to negotiate a peaceful surrender. At 5:57 p.m., the ballistic response vehicle had moved to a different location, and one of the SWAT officers inside that vehicle observed the suspect point his shotgun out the window in his direction, and he fired one shot at the suspect. The suspect was inside the house at the time, and at 6:38 p.m., the suspect came out the front door and ended the standoff peacefully. He was taken into custody. He was transported to UF Health, where his current condition the last check was critical but stable. The gun recovered from s.w.a.t's house is a Stevens single-barrel, single-shot shotgun. It appears that this was the only gun that he used, although there were several other firearms located in the house. The guns, according to s.w.a.t's mother, were hers that had been passed down from a grandfather. s.w.a.t appeared to have a single gunshot to his head, and it does not appear to be self-inflicted, according to the hospital. Additional charges are likely at this time. He's charged with aggravated assault, domestic violence for the shot that he fired at his mother. And I'll answer any questions you have.
David Train from Times Union, you say the gunshot was not self-inflicted, so it was an officer who fired?
It appears at this time, yes, it was one of our officers' gunshots that struck him in the head.
Was it the final shot that was fired by the officer the third time, I guess?
We're not sure. We're still looking into all of that. They're still out at the scene as we speak right now, collecting evidence. The hospital will have to provide us with some of that information.
So he was shot sometime during the day, you're just not sure?
I'm not sure at which point he was shot.
At which point, because there were several.
Yes, but it appears that he was shot by police gunfire.
Lorena in Clan Action News, how many gunshot was fired by JSO or altogether? Can you say how many?
Not yet. I can't say how many. There were multiple rounds fired that were the gas that we fire into the house. The gunshots that were fired, I provided that to you last night. There were 7 total shots fired by police.
And do you know how many the suspect fired?
Not yet. We know that he fired at least 2 times into the floor of his house, and then he fired at least 2 other times at the police. But we're still collecting the evidence of the scene right now.
Dana Treen again, there was a dog involved, and then was the dog killed? Was the dog
No.
killed? Was not killed?
Candy and Jesse are okay. They've been returned to Mr. s.w.a.t's mom.
Candy and Jesse, 2 dogs.
Yes, 2
But they're
poodles.
okay. People.
They were not injured.
And I'm sorry, I missed the extent of injuries were what?
We have 1 gunshot to the head. That's all.
Severe.
He's in stable but critical condition at this time. It was life-threatening last night, but updated condition is stable but still critical.
Mike Bunker first custody, but did he walk out under his own power?
He came out of the house under his own power, yes, and he was immediate. We have SWAT medics that were there to treat him immediately at the scene, and he was given, the best medical care that we could possibly provide him.
Jim Piggott again. I guess it's just kind of hard to understand somebody shot in the head, but might have been around for a long time, involved in all of this, or you don't know when that shot was fired?
It appears that it went in through the side and back out the side. Didn't go through his head. Although sometimes people survive those too. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the pictures of people with knives through their heads that somehow miraculously survive. It just depends on where it goes.
Any other questions?
Could you repeat real quick the charges that he's facing again?
Right now, he's being charged with aggravated assault, domestic violence for the shot that he fired at his mother as she fled the residence. But there'll likely be add-on charges. We haven't added on any charges at this time, but more than likely there'll be aggravated assault, perhaps attempted murder towards a police officer.
Any other questions?
Since we don't know who fired the shot that hit him, how will they do the review of that?
We'll look at all of the projectiles and where the trajectory of the bullets went, where he was standing likely, and hopefully we'll be able to, after all of the crime scene work is done, be able to determine which one of those shots was the one that hit him.
How much, there was tear gas or I guess some chemical that was also shot into the house?
Yes.
Is it habitable now, do you know? Or?
Probably not right now. I'm not sure the extent of the damage, but
And he fired guns inside there too?
he did. And he broke out windows.
He broke up, okay.
Yes.
Any other questions reference this incident? All right.